Hello again. My name's Jeff, and this is my third video that will contain the events that we experienced while out in the field doing CE5s. This particular one that I'm going to bring up first was our latest one, which was September 9th of 2018. We sat down and did started doing the protocols, and that consists of doing coherent thought sequencing, and we did that while using the ET app that we get from Serious Disclosure. And by the way, I'm not affiliated with Serious Disclosure or Dr. Greer. So after we did that, and that was like 20 minutes, then we sent out the crop circle tones with a radio. We transmitted out probably 10 miles. We were just standing around talking, and something very unusual happened, and that's why I'm making these videos, because you know, like I've mentioned in earlier ones, that one reason is for the documentation, the other reason is to inform others what this is like. So, and possibly other people have witnessed the same things. I'd like to hear from you. This particular thing we call a fireball. By all appearances, it was a meteorite, but there's a lot wrong with that, with calling it a meteorite, and I'll get through this in the next few minutes. So the best description I can come up with is for you to visualize this. You, for some reason, you're given the opportunity to match the speed of a meteor going through the atmosphere, the upper atmosphere. And that means you're going, who knows, 100,000 miles an hour. You're a half mile away from this meteor, maybe a mile. It is just burning up, coming through the atmosphere, and I can imagine once it starts getting into the atmosphere, there was probably some rumbling and some noise that eventually you're going to hear from it. But for the most part, it's a visual experience. You match the speed, you're a short distance away, and you get an up-close look of what's going on to that big rock that's red hot. Red and white hot even. So if you can picture that, what do you think's happening to the face of that rock while it's going through the atmosphere? It would be melting away, breaking up, and finding its way in the tail. And that's what makes that tail, all the debris coming off of that. So if you had a chance to watch that for 5 seconds, you could probably from that distance come up with a pretty good description of what it looked like. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to describe, because I had an opportunity along with the other two people that were with me to get an up-close look at this fireball. I'm not going to call it a meteor because it wasn't. So what we saw was, and this is my description of what I saw, a reddish orange, very hot looking sphere that was 50 feet in diameter approximately, half mile to a mile away. It is coming from the south and headed north. And it's only traveling at 150 miles an hour. It's holding level flight, it's not descending. Now, normally when you would see a meteor, and let's say if it was made out of rock or iron, whatever they all consist of, all the different minerals, it's a heavy, dense object. If it's moving 150 miles an hour, it would just go ploop right into the ground. It would not hold level flight. There is no momentum, there is no lift, there's no way possible that it could evade gravity. And okay, so that's what would normally happen if it was made of rock. So we see this sphere with a tail that's 100 yards long or so. It's very close. It's 50 foot in diameter. One of the people described it as being oblong shaped. When I was analyzing what I was looking at, what I saw was that this round sphere was quickly eroding, because my impression was that the material was very soft and the particles were peeling off and going back into the tail. So this thing kept going, and I got a real good look at it. The minute it started fading away, after about a few seconds, maybe 5 seconds, 4 or 5 seconds, it started fading out. I had a camera in my hand the whole time, ready to go, and I didn't even think about that until it started fading out, and I thought I better try to get something on film. So I bring up the camera, and because cameras usually take a few seconds to, or I should say a second or two, to focus and adjust for light before it starts recording decently. This camera picked up right away, but the problem with it was that I didn't get a chance to zoom in. So it's a wide angle. The only reference in the night sky was Arcturus, which was 10 degrees above the horizon at the time. So this came in underneath that, and that's the only reference. But as I started recording, it continued to rapidly dissipate or fade, and then it made a left-hand turn, turned white, and then disappeared as it got quite a bit smaller. So all I got is on camera was a object that it was roughly the size of Arcturus and gradually faded out. I can't do a lot with that video. There's not, I don't have any video editing software other than the basic brightening it, or putting a filter on it or something. But
oh, here it comes. It's coming. Come on, come on. Thank you.
wow,
That made my night.
what was that?
That made my night. That was no meteorite or
No,
shooting
that
star.
was.
That was for us.
Did you grab it?
Oh, I don't think I got it, but I tried. So that's what happened. Now, now people have asked, what do you think that was? And we knew it wasn't a meteor. I did get 30 seconds of recording, which include the audio of us talking about it, and we agreed it wasn't a meteor. So we have a bright reddish orange object moving through the sky at a slow speed. 150 miles an hour for something like that is slow. So I'll call it a fireball. So we have this fireball, 50 foot in diameter. I'm going to try a three-dimensional type description. For some reason, this thing didn't descend at maintained altitude. Well, obviously it wasn't a rock. And also the material that's peeling off the face of it and going back to the tail, that can't be heavy either. If that was a rock, molten rock or whatever, that would be falling off and going to the ground, not back to the tail. So this would be a description of this in a three-dimensional view would be the object had to have been made of a lightweight substance. Let's say it's a fully engulfed piece of charcoal. It's lightweight, it's red hot. Anything that breaks off going 150 miles an hour would certainly go back to the tail. So that would describe what we were looking at, a lightweight object that's huge, burning. One other thing to note, though, there was no sound. Now, normally in a case like that, you would hear something. There was nothing. So then, as it faded out, it's not like it did, like sometimes when things burn out, they get bright real quick and then they burn and dim down to nothing. This wasn't the case. This just gradually stayed, it stayed the same and then just started fading out. And actually turning white when it turned left, when it turned towards the west. And disappeared. So I don't know what that was. I can't explain it. Three-dimensional thing, it maintained lift, it maintained altitude. There's nothing visible that would cause it to do that. There was not enough speed for it to have momentum that in our short viewing time it wouldn't have a trajectory that was headed towards the ground. There's no explanation that I can come up with that could explain this. This was a very intense, colorful, visual display. Now, one of the other people in the group saw it as yellow and orange, and the other person saw it as white, a white oblong object. I could explain the oblong because the face of the sphere was missing. There was about 2/3 of a sphere there when it appeared, and the debris was from the face of it was rapidly moving towards the tail. So it was getting smaller as we watched it. This is 2017. It was just the two people. That's the way it worked out. Normally you don't do a C5 with just two people, but we did. We were in the exact same spot. I was sitting in a chair facing east. This is shortly after setting up and getting ready. My buddy, he does something other than the C5 protocols. He does his own thing. I think in a case like this, there's nothing wrong with that. I prefer doing the C5s with groups because, of course, with groups you want some cohesiveness. You want to have the same intentions, and with him and I, we have the same intentions, so there's not an issue there. And as far as being cohesive, so I do the protocols like I discussed earlier, and just when I finished transmitting crop circle tones, I just put the radio away. Something from behind me is running towards me. Now I'm elevated. I'm about 3 foot above the other area, which is marshy, grassy, water, lots of water. So I'm guessing from 100 feet behind me, I hear something running towards me. Now, we've been out there a lot of times. I've never heard something like this happen. It's a huge area. And I don't know, whatever it is, I can't tell if it's got 2 legs or 4 legs. It's coming towards me rapidly. So I stood up from the chair, and as I turned around, I realized that it was still coming towards me. It's about 20 feet away. It's starting to slow down. It stopped 10 feet away and to my right, and then made a right angle turn, so it ended up right in front of me, 5 feet away. I can't see anything. I'm 3 feet above that area, so I'm looking down, I'm looking for something. Now, my buddy, I had to get his attention. He didn't hear all that ruckus, which surprised me. He's a little hard of hearing. But I told him, I got something going on here. Come on over. And he was quite excited. He thought I had an ET in front of me. So I don't know what was in front of me. We're in a marsh. Could have been an animal, but it was very strange. Maybe it was just there to get my attention, to turn around and look, because when he got over by me, and as we were looking down for something, he says, "Hey, look up a little." And I did. I looked up a little, and there it was. There's 2 red lights sitting out there, and they were approximately 2 miles away. That's where the shoreline is for this large area. It's all grassy until you get to the tree line. And that tree line's 2 miles away. So up above the tree line, and I put my binoculars up, I see 2 triangular objects. They're both facing, 2 triangular objects. One was 2/3 the size of the other. I attribute that to being that the other one might have been a mile or half mile back. from the one that was at 2 miles. And it was just offset a little. So there's two triangular objects. They look exactly the same, and they have a black bottom which is rounded. Yeah, I couldn't help but think they look like a teepee. If you were to walk up on a teepee, you'd notice, of course, it's triangular shape, and then the bottom is rounded because the bottom, is round. So that's what it looked like. The two teepees floating up in the air. Bright reddish orange. So I looked at them with the binoculars. I wasn't prepared with a camera, and then I brought the binoculars down and I described them to my buddy, and then my buddy says they don't want to be looked at. I says okay, and then they faded out. He says they faded out, but they're still there. And it wasn't but a few moments later where a white sphere descended from the main triangular object, which the area where the main object was, because it had disappeared. And this object moved down towards the right, and as it descended, it did a little zigzag, and then it went down to the ground. So that was one of those unusual sightings. Now I've seen a number, and that's one of the reasons why I want to document this, because I've seen a number of very strange things, hard to explain in the 3D world, So that wasn't the whole night. During the night, we saw what we refer to as flash bulbs. So prior to all this happening, I had seen 4 flash bulbs. I had never mentioned that to my buddy. They were 30 degrees off the horizon in southwest, and no idea how far they are. They could have been 100 miles. They could have been 100,000 miles. Could have been 1,000,000 miles. I don't know how far away that was emanating from. So it happened 4 times that I noticed. So then, prior to us packing it up for the night, it happened again. I see it, same spot. And my buddy's next to me, and he says, you know what, I just saw a 5th flash bulb. And as I pointed to it, it flashed again. He saw it. That's the first time he's ever seen a flash bulb. Given his extensive background in astronomy, that was kind of amazing to me that he's never seen one of them before. So that was my experience that night. That was 2017, around September. So, the next thing, of course, for us to do the next time, we went to where those objects appeared from. We tried a new spot, and that a new area for field work. This new spot, we were between where the triangular objects appeared and where the white ball went down, the white sphere. So we're right in between that area. We had a third person with us that was new to this, but wasn't new to, paranormal type things. So, again, did the C5 protocols. We had seen some things prior that night, some green light in the distance, at ground level, probably a mile away, and some other activities, but nothing outstanding. Next thing you know, my buddy, I see this white light, just bright white light. It was like it was shining on us. It was rising. It was quarter mile away, and it started. It's rising, and my buddy turns around. He was ahead of me, about 20 feet ahead of me. He turns around and says, "Here," he says, "one's coming. Here one comes," he says. And I said, "I know, I see it." So this object, which consisted of 3 bright white lights on one craft, couldn't make out the type of craft it was. As it ascended to around 40 feet or so, it started moving towards us. and it covered half the distance. So it's about 500 feet away. It got to 500 feet away, 60 feet high, and then it returned right where it came from. And that was so weird. No noise, no sound. Which, you know, when you see something like that and there's no sound or nothing, all it is a visual, you know, a visual thing. I wasn't getting anything through consciousness. I wasn't receiving anything with feeling. So it was purely a visual sight. And that's the case with all three of the sightings that I just talked about. It just seems so strange, you know, there's no sound. One sense picks it up. It makes it unreal, you know, it makes it seem unreal that, did I really see that? That was weird. Why would it do that? Well, we found out the next day that the third person that was with us freaked right out when that happened. When they saw that thing coming towards us, they freaked. So, this person wasn't prepared. As usual, I have some, when I see something like that, I'm excited. That's what we're out there for. That's what we work towards. Not that there isn't some anticipation or maybe a slight bit of anxiety. That depending on what's happening, like in this particular case, there's probably a little anxiety brewing in there too. But to me, it's primarily exciting. And wondering, questioning what's going to happen next. So that's as close as I've gotten to a physical craft that I can see. You know, I've been a lot closer to physical craft that were cloaked. But so this was interesting, worth mentioning, and of course worth documenting. So the three lights on it were so bright, you know, it kind of looked like one light. But you know, this craft turned out, and if it left an imprint, because I didn't go, you know, it came out of the marsh. You know, I like to do research on things, and you know, I started out skeptical. I've seen some pretty amazing things now. I'm no longer a skeptic concerning the phenomena. You know, I'm all for, you know, where the movement has always been heading is developing your consciousness now. More people are aware of that, and I think the more you develop, the more you meditate, the more you want things to happen, the more things come your way. And they challenge, the ETI, I call it, extraterrestrial intelligence, will challenge you just to see how far you want to go. So that's a question we all have to ask ourselves. To do C5s with a group, experienced group, you know, we had an advanced group meet with Dr. Greer, and I explained that in my second video. We had some spectacular things happen. So, you know, how far do you want to go with this? You know, I'd like to pursue it as much as I can.